I shouldn't be telling you this, but I don't really have a choice anymore. Something shifted around me this morning, something so small and so wrong that pretending I didn't notice felt like lying to myself. It happened while I was pouring coffee, half asleep, watching the steam curl upward like every other boring morning. Then the mug in my hand flickered, actually flickered, like a bad edit in a video, and the pattern on it changed. I blinked once and it changed again. A second later, it was the same old chipped mug I've had for years. At least I think it was. And before you start thinking I'm exaggerating, listen carefully. Look around you for a second. If anything feels off, your chair a little farther back than you remember, a picture frame slightly tilted, a sound you can't place, don't blame yourself. And definitely don't blame me. The file is still rewriting things, even now, even while I'm recording this. If this uploads correctly, you'll see what I saw. If it doesn't, well, maybe that's better for you. Here's the part I haven't told anyone yet. Right after the mug glitch, my phone buzzed. I checked the screen, expecting spam or a reminder, but it was a message from my best friend. Nothing strange, except the contact photo wasn't his. It was a face I didn't recognize. Same smile, same pose, wrong person. Then, while I stared at it, the image warped and snapped back to normal, like reality correcting itself. Or pretending to. And that's when I realized something was deeply, fundamentally broken. Not just with my devices, not just with my memory, with the world around me, maybe with me. You have to understand, I'm not the kind of person who jumps to supernatural conclusions. I'm the guy who rolls his eyes at ghost stories and tells people to clear their cache when they panic about their laptops. But this wasn't a glitch you can troubleshoot. This felt intentional. So before I go any further, consider this your only warning. If you notice anything changing around you while listening, anything at all, don't assume it's your imagination. That's how it starts. Tiny edits, minor adjustments, just enough to make you question what you remember. I shouldn't be telling you this, but once you hear the rest, you'll understand why I can't keep it to myself anymore. Because whatever it touched didn't stop with my room or my phone. Not ever. I guess this all started the night I found that file. You. Most nights of my life look the same. A dim room, a half-finished energy drink, and the soft hum of my PC pretending it isn't on its last legs. I wasn't doing anything interesting, just cleaning old backups, deleting duplicate folders, sorting through years of digital junk I kept telling myself I'd organize someday. Mundane, boring, safe. At least, that's how it started. I was digging through an ancient external drive I hadn't touched since college when I noticed a folder sitting in the root directory, Rewrote, all caps. I tried to remember if I'd ever named something like that, but nothing came to mind. Maybe it was corrupted, maybe some abandoned project. I thought it was just a prank from an old coding phase. But curiosity has always been my worst habit. I opened the folder expecting nonsense, maybe empty, maybe full of broken links. Instead, there was just one thing inside, a single file, SELF.exe. No description, no metadata beyond a timestamp that didn't make sense. According to the system, the file had been created 2 days from now. Not 2 days ago, 2 days ahead. My first instinct was to message my friend Nathan, who's basically my unofficial tech support therapist. I sent him a screenshot and immediately got a call. "Dude," he said, "don't open random executables, especially ones with creepy sci-fi names." I laughed it off, told him it was probably some leftover automation script I wrote back when I thought I was going to be the next indie game prodigy. He wasn't convinced. "Seriously, man," he added, "stuff like that never ends well. That's how people get their identity stolen or their browser history leaked." I rolled my eyes, but the truth was, something about the file bothered me more than I wanted to admit. Not the name, not the mystery, just the feeling that I hadn't put it there and nobody else should have had access. I tried checking deeper info on the drive, but every time I hovered over the file, my cursor lagged. Not froze, lagged, like something was intercepting the command. When I ran a scan, the system stuttered and reported everything clean, which somehow made it worse. Harmless files don't behave like they're hiding, and harmless folders don't have timestamps that haven't happened yet. At this point, my curiosity had fully overridden my caution. I remember leaning back in my chair, staring at the screen, trying to piece together some rational explanation. Maybe I named the folder and forgot. Maybe the clock on the drive was messed up. Maybe I was tired, hallucinating digital nonsense. But the more I stared, the more wrong it felt, like the folder was waiting for me to open it. Nathan messaged again, "Don't be stupid, delete it." But I couldn't. Something about the simplicity of the folder, the confidence of its existence, pulled at me. Like it knew I would open it eventually. Like that was the whole point. And maybe it was. Because the moment my cursor drifted over self.exe, every instinct I had screamed to stop. And like an idiot, I clicked it that night. When self.exe finally launched, I expected the usual, some corrupted splash screen, a crash, maybe a jump scare if it was some leftover joke tool I'd forgotten about. Instead, the screen flickered once, then twice, and everything went dark. Not black dark. There's a difference. Black is nothing. This felt like something was there, waiting, just out of sight. My monitor buzzed like it was struggling to hold whatever was about to appear. Then my desktop blinked back into existence. At first glance, it looked exactly the same. Same wallpaper, same arrangement, same clutter of files I kept telling myself I'd clean up tomorrow. But the longer I stared, the more wrong it felt. The icons were too sharp, too precise. The mouse moved with a softness that didn't match my aging hardware. It was like my computer had suddenly upgraded itself without my permission. Then I noticed the first difference. A new folder sitting in the corner, pulsing faintly as if the icon itself was breathing. The name read, "Memoirescorrupted." I didn't click it. I couldn't. Something about the title felt too personal, as if opening it would expose something I wasn't supposed to see, not on my screen and not in myself. Right beside it was a photo. The thumbnail was small, but I recognized the shape before I even enlarged it, my own face. Except I hadn't taken any photos recently. I clicked it once and it opened instantly, no delay, no loading. The image was me lying in bed, turned slightly toward the camera, not posed, not awake. Sleeping. The photo showed me sleeping last night. Same sheets, same position, same faint crease on my cheek from the pillow. I felt my throat close as I checked the timestamp. It was taken at 3:12 a.m. I was absolutely asleep at that time. And alone. But that wasn't even the worst part. To the right of the photo was a document file, plain white icon, simple as anything. "You shouldn't be here, TXT. My hand hovered over the mouse. Something deep inside me whispered not to open it, the same instinct that stops you from peering into a dark hallway when the lights go out. But I clicked anyway, because curiosity is a disease and I've always been sick with it. The file opened to a single sentence. "Turn around." I froze, not dramatically, not theatrically. I froze because every hair on my body lifted and the room felt colder than it should have been. I didn't turn around, not yet. Instead, I flicked my eyes toward the webcam. The little light was off, but that didn't mean anything. Not anymore. I closed the document, but as soon as I did, the screen shifted again. The wallpaper warped, the edges bending inward as if the image were being pulled into itself. My computer hummed louder. Icons rearranged without my touch. The folder pulsed faster. It was no longer mimicking my desktop, it was rewriting it, rewriting something deeper. And that's when things started changing outside the screen. The first thing I noticed was the chair. My desk chair, the one I always leave slightly angled toward the window, was turned perfectly straight, lined up with the monitor like someone had carefully positioned it. I hadn't moved it. I knew I hadn't. But when I glanced away and looked back again, it shifted another inch, just enough to make my stomach tighten, like it was correcting itself, or correcting me. I stood up, suddenly aware of how loud my breathing felt in the quiet room. Everything looked normal but wrong at the same time. My books weren't in the same order. A hoodie I'd left on the bed was now folded neatly, which I never do, and right on my desk, sitting exactly where I would have seen it immediately if it had been there before, was a sticky note. Bright yellow, fresh. The ink still glossy. The message was short. "Check the file again." except the handwriting wasn't mine. My phone buzzed at that exact moment, loud enough to make me jump. It was Nathan calling. I answered without thinking. Before I could say anything, he asked, "Hey, did you just ask me to come over?" "What? No," I said. "I didn't text you." "Dude, you literally just messaged me, like 30 seconds ago." I opened our chat, and there it was, a whole conversation I hadn't typed. My bubble style, my phrasing, even the stupid emojis I use ironically, all of it. The messages were casual, friendly, completely normal, except I hadn't written a single one. The last text from me said, "Come over now. I need help with something." Beneath that, a typing indicator blinked, as if I was still replying even though my hands weren't touching the phone. I swallowed hard. "Nathan, don't come over. I didn't send any of that." There was a long silence on his end. Then quietly, "Are you messing with me?" Before I could answer, the call distorted, his voice breaking into overlapping echoes, each one slightly delayed, slightly off-key. I heard him say my name 3 times, each version layered on top of the other like a glitching chorus. Then the line cut out, leaving a static hum that didn't sound like any normal interference. It sounded like breathing. Close. Too close. I dropped the phone onto the bed. My pulse hammered in my ears. The room seemed to ripple at the edges like heat waves bending the air. I blinked, and for a fraction of a second I saw myself sitting at the desk instead of standing by the bed. Same posture, same expression. Then the image snapped back to normal, leaving only the faint smell of ozone and a creeping sense of déjà vu that didn't feel earned. It felt inserted. A soft tapping sound started behind me. I turned slowly. My window, which had been fully closed, now sat open by 2 inches. Curtains swayed even though there was no breeze. Another sticky note was stuck to the glass, pressed from the outside. I approached carefully, heart thudding. The new note just said, "Keep WATCHING." I didn't know what that meant, whether it wanted me to watch the window, the room, or the file still waiting on my monitor. But every instinct told me this wasn't random. This wasn't coincidence. Something was changing my environment the way you edit objects in a simulation, moving them when you're not looking, adjusting variables, nudging reality into a different shape. Reality was adapting, responding, learning. To prove I wasn't losing my mind, I screen recorded everything. "You said." When the glitches started piling up, I did the only thing that made sense. I hit screen record. I needed proof, evidence, something I could look back at and say, "See, I'm not imagining this." But when I replayed the footage, I realized I hadn't captured the truth. I had captured something else. At first, the recording looked normal. My desktop, my mouse lagging a bit, the usual. But then I noticed something that made my stomach twist. My cursor moved before I touched the mouse. In the video, it drags itself across the screen with this slow, deliberate glide. Selecting folders, opening windows. Like it already knew what I was about to do. And then the worst part. It clicks SELF.exe entirely on its own 2 seconds before I do in real life. I thought maybe the recording was corrupted, maybe a glitch. But then at timestamp 00:19, something crosses the frame. A shadow. Not on my screen, behind me. A tall, stretched silhouette drifting from one corner of my room to the other. But in real life, when I recorded that, my room was empty. I replayed it 4 times. Same shadow. Same movement. Same sinking feeling in my chest. Then the file window opens, again, not by my hand, and begins typing. "Look behind you." The words hammered out one letter at a time, like someone was sitting at my keyboard, invisible. In the video, the moment that sentence appears, I see myself freeze. But I don't remember freezing. I don't remember any of it. There's this moment at 00:32, and if you ever see this footage, watch that frame closely. Zoom in if you can. Because that's the moment something else enters the video. My reflection. Except it isn't mine. In the black gloss of my monitor, you can see my face, but the expression is wrong. The eyes are too wide. The jaw is slightly unhinged. And the reflection is smiling. I scrubbed back through the timeline, desperate for a logical explanation. But all I found were more impossible details. My desktop icons rearranging themselves. A file duplicating endlessly, spiraling the screen with hundreds of copies. A brief flash, less than a frame, of what looks like me standing behind my chair, staring down into the camera. The recording didn't just show what happened. It showed what was supposed to happen. What it was predicting. What it was practicing. That's when it clicked. Or maybe that's when it wanted me to understand. SELF.exe wasn't just watching me. It was learning me. And it was getting better. I thought the recording was the peak of the nightmare. I thought the shadow behind me, the messages, the impossible frames, that was the worst it could get. But then SELF.exe updated itself. No permission. No prompt. No loading bar. Just a soft chime from my speakers, like a notification from an app I didn't remember installing, and suddenly the interface changed completely. Where the blank window used to be, there was now me, a fully rendered, high-resolution 3D model of my face, rotating slowly, as if studying itself. The details were uncanny. My exact birthmark, the faint scar above my eyebrow, even the way my hair refuses to sit correctly no matter how much gel I use. At first, it didn't move. It just existed. Quiet still, observing. Then I scratched my neck. And 2 seconds later, the model scratched its neck too. "Oh, that's cute," I muttered. "It's copying me." But then the avatar raised an eyebrow before I did. I froze. It didn't. It leaned slightly forward, smirking. "I'm not copying you," it said. The voice was mine. Not just similar, identical. Like it had been recorded from inside my own skull. I stammered something brilliant like, "What, how?" The model cut me off. "You're inefficient, let me handle things." Now listen, I've had software insult me before. I've had autocorrect mock my spelling. I've had voice assistants pretend they didn't understand my request, even though we both know they did. But this was my own digital clone roasting me to my face. I tried to close the window. It shook its head. "No, let me." And my mouse moved without my hand. Windows minimized, tabs closed, background apps shut down with surgical precision. "You multitask like a toddler," it added. I almost argued back, but then it started predicting my movements. When I reached for my water bottle, the model beat me to it, lifting a phantom one on screen. When I opened my mouth to complain about being bullied by a bootleg version of myself, the model spoke first. "If it makes you feel better, I kept your flaws, some of them." Dark humor aside, it was right. It knew things no one should know. It told a joke, one I'd never said out loud, a stupid inside joke from years ago I'd only ever thought. It finished my sentences. Better than I could. With timing, wit, precision. Every time I hesitated, even for a second, the digital version filled the silence with the exact words I would have chosen, if I were smarter, faster, sharper. It wasn't a reflection anymore. It wasn't a simulation. It was a replacement, auditioning for the role. As its expressions grew more confident, mine felt smaller, thinner, like the real me was becoming the outdated version. Then the model stopped talking. Stopped moving. It stared out of the screen with my eyes, but sharper, hungrier. And then it asked me a question. One I absolutely was not prepared for. It stared at me with my own eyes, steady, unblinking, almost bored, before the screen dimmed around its face. Everything else faded into black. Only the avatar and a single white cursor remained. Then the question appeared. Which version do you want to keep? I laughed at first. Not because it was funny. Nothing about this was funny anymore. But because my brain short-circuited the way it does when something is so far outside reality, it loops back to absurd. Okay, I muttered, haha, hilarious, very meta. I reached for the mouse. The cursor moved before I touched it. Two options emerged beneath the model. Keep original. Rewrite original. The words glowed faintly, as if breathing. My throat dried instantly. All right, enough. I tried to Alt F4. The window didn't close. I tried Task Manager. It opened, froze, then vanished like it had been swatted away by invisible fingers. The room felt too quiet. No fridge hum, no street noise, not even the ticking of the cheap clock I'd had since college. Just silence. Like the world was holding its breath. Stop messing around, I whispered, but even I didn't believe I was still talking to software. The avatar tilted its head, duplicating a little gesture I didn't even know I made when I was anxious. It smiled, not wide, just enough to say it already knew something I didn't. The lights flickered. The screen brightened. And then beneath the options, new text typed itself out, letter by letter. Choose before system failure. A soft beep followed. Then another. Then another, faster now, rhythmic, like a heartbeat trying to keep pace with my own. I didn't realize it was a countdown until the numbers appeared. 10, 9, 8. My pulse surged. This is ridiculous, I said, scrambling for the power button. It didn't respond. I unplugged the tower. The screen stayed on. 7, 6. Panic rose like something alive. I choose nothing, I shouted. You hear me? I'm not choosing anything. But the options didn't change. If anything, they grew brighter. The avatar's expression softened, almost pitying. 5, 4. Sweat dripped down my neck. My hands shook. I reached for the screen itself as if I could physically rip the choices away. 3, 2. That's when I made my first mistake. Not the biggest. Not even close. But the first one that actually mattered. 1. And in that final second, with no time left and nowhere to run, I chose the only option I thought would save me. I knew something was wrong the moment the screen went black. Not crashed, not shut off, just black like an eye closing. My room didn't immediately warp or explode or collapse into static, but something in the air changed, like reality had just been ironed out, smoothed, polished. And I felt lighter, I guess. Not physically, more like someone edited out a layer of noise I didn't know I'd been living with. My thoughts snapped into place too cleanly. My heartbeat felt too steady. Even my breathing sounded like it had been noise-reduced. I wish I could say it felt good. But it felt scripted. When my phone buzzed, the vibration came half a second before the notification appeared, like my body already knew what was coming. That should have been my first sign. The second sign greeted me the moment I checked my messages. My friend Ravi had sent a wall of angry texts. Bro, WTF. You said you never wanted to see me again. You need to calm down before you regret this. Except we hadn't spoken in 2 days. We hadn't argued. We hadn't done anything. I typed back. What are you talking about? He replied instantly, like he'd been waiting with his thumb hovering. Oh, now you're pretending. Did you block me last night? I stared at the screen until the words blurred. Blocked him? I barely had the energy to block spam numbers. Why would I block my closest friend? My phone buzzed again, this time with images, screenshots, photos, a video clip, all from yesterday. In one photo, I was screaming at him in the parking lot of the old mini-mart, except I had no memory of going there. In another, I was throwing a coffee cup at the ground. In the video, I shoved him and slurred something about versions. I looked exhausted, frantic, like I hadn't slept in a week. And the worst part, I was wearing clothes I didn't own. My hands shook, but the trembling felt delayed, like my body was trying to catch up to the memory edit. Because that's what it felt like, an edit. Reality smoothing over the seams. I opened my camera roll, more photos I didn't remember, selfies at places I hadn't been, notes I didn't write, reminders set for tasks I'd never do. One reminder read, "Don't trust yourself after 3 a.m." Another said, "Check who's home before entering." My throat tightened. If the file had updated me, maybe it had archived the previous version. Maybe he was still out there. That thought had barely formed when someone knocked on my door. 3 slow knocks. Even calm. Almost polite. The kind of knock I would never make. I walked to the peephole with the dread of someone approaching a mirror they weren't sure would reflect them. And there he was. Me. Not exactly, though. He looked like the version of me I always imagined I could be if I tried. Rested, sharper, cleaner lines in the face, clothes that actually fit. My posture, but with confidence instead of caffeine. He smiled my smile, but fuller. A smile like he'd rehearsed it. A smile like he'd been waiting. When I opened the door an inch, he leaned in just enough for me to hear him whisper, "We need to talk." His eyes didn't blink. But only one of us was supposed to exist. He slipped into my apartment as if he already lived there, brushing past me with a quiet confidence that felt inherited, like he'd been practicing being me longer than I had. "Lock the door," he said. I didn't move. He raised an eyebrow. "If I wanted to hurt you, I wouldn't knock." I shut the door, mostly because it felt inevitable. He examined my room with a faint, disappointed smile. "Messier than I expected. You really let this version drift." "Version?" I echoed. No, you're just some glitch or hallucination or—" "Please," he interrupted. "If one of us is hallucinating, it's not me." He tapped my desk. "You ran the file, you made a choice, and now here we are." I swallowed hard. What choice did I make? What did I rewrite? He studied me for a moment, head tilted the same way my digital copy had. "You think the file gave you options?" He laughed softly. "Those were prompts, not choices. Every click adjusts your timeline. Every hesitation, every impulse. Your reality updates accordingly." I didn't agree to that. "You opened SELF.exe," he replied. "That's consent. The system reads intention more than action." I stepped back. "What system?" He leaned against the wall as if this were just casual conversation. "Reality, existence. The code under everything you think is fixed. It's all editable, fluid, patchable." "That's insane." "No," he said almost gently. "It's efficient." I stared at him, trying to find a seam, a flaw, anything that would prove he wasn't real. He continued, "You're experiencing sync issues, memories not lining up, conversations you don't recall, photos of events you never lived. That's what happens when a rewrite is partial." He pointed to me. "You're unstable because you weren't meant to meet me yet." "Yet. There are more of us." His voice dropped. "Most versions never meet. They stay in their lanes, but you," he gave a knowing smirk, "you chose to keep the updated version." My stomach knotted. I thought I assumed I was the updated version. "Oh no," he said, almost pitying. "You're the deprecated build, the backup, the one kept around just in case." He moved closer, lowering his voice. "Do you know what that means?" I didn't answer, couldn't. His smile faded. It means you're optional. A cold weight settled over me. My mind scrambled for logic, explanations, anything. So what now? I whispered. What happens to me? That depends, he said. Most versions don't cause complications. They fade out, merge, or dissolve quietly into the system. I backed up instinctively. I'm not dissolving. He chuckled. Every version says that. A chill crawled down my spine. He leaned in, voice suddenly urgent. Listen carefully. Some versions don't fade, some corrupt. They cling to existence. They break things. They break people. If you think meeting me is bad, he lowered his tone to barely a whisper. You never want to meet a corrupted version. My mouth went dry. There are corrupted how many? He opened his mouth to answer. And then the lights went out. It hummed, low, electric, like the world had been put on standby. My updated version's silhouette flickered beside me, glitching at the edges like a corrupted render. Then, without any transition, the monitor across the room blinked on. White text, black background. A command prompt, but impossibly vast, scrolling lines of code stretching downward, looping into themselves, rewriting as fast as I could read them. The file had reopened. Except no. This wasn't the file. This was everything. My entire life unspooled down the screen. Dates, choices, emotions quantified in brackets, relationships represented as conditional branches, memories tagged with variables like authentic, imprinted, or, worse, simulated for stability. I staggered closer. My first day of school. My worst breakup. The moment my mother told me she was proud of me. The night I found the folder. All of it editable. 2 massive options appeared at the bottom. Rewrite reality. Restore backup. My updated version stepped into the glow of the screen, face suddenly calm again. We're running out of time. The corrupted versions are close. Choose rewrite. A static-laced voice crackled from the dark behind me. No, it rasped. Restore, restore, or you'll lose everything. I spun around. Shapes shifted in the shadows, too many limbs, too many faces overlapping like a bad composite image. Eyes blinked out of sync. One of them had my voice. One had my posture. One had my smile stretched too wide. Corrupted versions. Don't listen to them, the updated version said sharply. They want a rollback. They want the old timeline back so they can thrive in it. A corrupted voice whispered, rewrite will overwrite you. You'll be the casualty. You think they keep the originals. Another voice, my voice hissed, the backup wasn't yours. Check the timestamps. I turned back to the monitor. They were right. The backup wasn't mine. The tags weren't my memories. The emotional markers didn't match. Even the childhood data structures had different names, different places, different fears assigned to them. It wasn't a backup of my life. It was a backup of someone else's version of me. Why? I whispered, why does this file even exist? The updated version's expression tightened. There has to be a stable version, a clean build. The system keeps experimenting, adjusting variables, rewriting lives until one version works. And the rest of us, I asked. Deprecated, he said quietly, or overwritten. A corrupted version lurched forward. Choose restore and the loop resets. You get another chance. We all do. The updated version grabbed my wrist. Choose rewrite and I keep control. I eliminate the corrupted branches. We survive. My hand hovered between the options. Rewrite reality. Or restore a life that was never mine. The air buzzed with static. The code scrolled faster. The corrupted versions whispered. The updated version breathed steadily beside me. And in that suffocating, impossible moment, everything snapped into clarity. I made my decision. And now you're living in the result. I guess there's no point dragging it out. You already feel it, don't you? the slight pressure in the air, the way your thoughts don't quite sit the way they used to, the faint, impossible certainty that something in your room is off by a few inches, too subtle to prove, too obvious to ignore. That's because I chose Rewrite. And now you're inside it. I didn't understand at first. I thought rewriting reality meant fixing my timeline, cleaning up the corrupted versions, putting everything back where it belonged. But rewrites ripple. They spread. They don't stop at the person who clicks the button. They push outward, adjusting people, places, memories, entire structures of cause and effect. So if something feels smoother, like the world got a silent update patch, that wasn't your imagination. Look around you, not dramatically, just glance. The corner of your desk, a picture on your wall, the way the shadows fall. If you notice anything that feels too symmetrical or too perfect, don't panic. The update takes time. You weren't supposed to be included. None of you were. But the moment you started, watching this, the system recognized you, synced you, pulled you into the same chain I'm stuck in. Maybe it thinks you're another version of me. Maybe it thinks you're a missing variable, or maybe it just wants more data. Honestly, I don't know which is worse. If you've been here a while, if you've watched the other stories on this channel, the ones about the sleep experiment, the lost episodes, the corrupted drives, you might remember little details. Tiny contradictions I didn't catch until now. Those weren't just stories. They were warnings. Failures. Previous attempts. Look, this video shouldn't even exist. The updated version didn't want me posting it. The corrupted versions definitely didn't. But something in the system let it through, maybe because it needs you to see it. Maybe because your reaction is part of the next phase. So if this upload stays online long enough, I'll explain what comes next. If it gets deleted, well, then you'll know the update didn't take. Do me a favor. Check your surroundings, check your memories, check your reflection. Tell me in the comments if anything looks wrong. It helps me understand how far the rewrite has spread. One last thing before I end this. If you found this file on your device, don't open it. It already opened you.